together here today to hear more about dynamic chat. We are very excited to kick off this session, but before we dive in, I wanted to ensure that everyone is subscribed to the chapter we've linked in the chat. By subscribing, you're going to stay in the know when other exciting webinars are taking place. And really, this session is intended to spark conversation and knowledge sharing. So please feel free to add your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to save time at the end so that we can address them. This session is being recorded, so we'll be sending this out after the session is over. And without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to John Dixon from our product team.
Thanks, Kelsey. And thanks everyone for joining us today. So I'm John Dixon. I'm a senior product manager here at Adobe. I work primarily on the Marketo Engage side of things, and I'm joined by my colleague Srikanth Reddy. He is also a senior product manager, and we've been working very closely together on dynamic chat for well over a year now. So Srikanth, did you want to add anything?
Excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Srikanth. So let's just, I'll just jump right in. So we've got an action-packed agenda today. So hopefully everyone brought snacks. But we're going to start off with an introduction, just sort of a high level, and then I'm going to jump right into and spend the bulk of our time on a deep dive demo of the product. I'll walk you through some of the workflows and how you can deploy a chatbot on your website in a matter of minutes. We'll talk about how we're rolling this out to customers today, currently, and then we'll share some best practices and use cases that customers who are using it today have found successful. And then we'll share some resources and leave some time for Q&A. So let me just jump right in. So we all want to create the best customer experiences to drive our buyers through their journey. And to do this, we spend time, effort, and resources optimizing websites, creating content, and curating personalized experiences. But often this leads to a complicated journey full of friction and impediments to conversion, especially on the website. So this can leave web visitors lost and without a clear path to the content that they originally came to the website looking for. So let's talk about a few of the ways that we can miss out on those critical website opportunities. So first, on average, research says that you have about 10 seconds to get your web visitors' attention. And if that doesn't happen, you end up with huge drop-off and bounce rates. And for the people that do stay on your website, we often rely on gated content like static forms to convert users. And while forms can be effective, they also can result in additional drop-off from the site. And so the ones that actually do manage to get to the form, fill it out, then they have to wait to be passed to sales, move through the funnel, contacted, schedule a meeting, then finally engage with a rep. And this can take days or even weeks to facilitate. And so it's clear there's an opportunity for a better solution to engage web visitors. And one way that you can do this is through chat. But as we discussed, we know that you need to engage leads quickly. So in addition to that 10 seconds that you have to engage, additional research shows that you have about 5 minutes as the ideal time frame to respond to an interested lead once they've engaged with you. And that's almost impossible to do with the journey we just walked through. And so one way that B2B companies are solving for this is by deploying chat technology. So 58% of customers that use chatbot technologies are actually B2B, which would seem to indicate that there's benefits to facilitating the B2B buyer journey. And of course, proactive engagement with web visitors can result in higher engagement rates. And so with chat, we see an average open rate of 80% and a 50% response rate, which is a great way to proactively engage customers and get good responses. So in short, by leveraging chat on your website, you have an opportunity to engage web visitors quickly and proactively, and potentially more so than you're able to do with traditional methods. And that brings us to dynamic chat. So dynamic chat's a new chatbot solution that we released this year that will enable marketers to design unique, personalized conversations for every web visitor. So we've designed this as a turnkey solution that allows you to design and deploy chat conversations on your website in a matter of minutes. Through dynamic chat, you can capture visitor information and interest, and you can pass that back in to your Marketo database to further retarget leads. You can allow existing qualified leads from target accounts to book meetings directly with sales in seconds, as opposed to those, the days or weeks that we talked about before, and so much more. So with that brief intro, let's just jump in. Let's just jump into a demo. Switch gears here. Great. So here we have Luma, which is a digital marketing solution business, and I'm a visitor on the website. So I've landed on Luma's homepage, and I'm not sure where to start, but fortunately, I'm greeted in the bottom right-hand corner by a friendly bot who asks if I want 3 times higher conversion rates. That sounds compelling, so I'm going to click here. Provides me with a little bit more information, tells me that Luma generated some great conversion and revenue for clients, and asks if I'd like to see similar growth. That sounds great. The next, it asks me what I'd like to learn about. So I actually have been interested in getting a little bit more information about social media marketing. That's what I came here for. And so I'm going to click that. And here it immediately provides me with a link to a case study. So I can go ahead and click this case study. And what I'll see is it's actually going to load this document directly in my browser. So here I have the ability to search for terms. So I can search for media, for instance, and it'll find that term. And additionally, if I want to just go ahead and save this to my desktop, I can download this PDF, and then it'll just save it right there for me. Then I can read it later. Now, all this behavior, all this interaction with this document is actually being stored against my record. So the activity will be pushed back into Marketo for further targeting to capture my interest. So next it says, would I like to sign up for our newsletter to have more documents like this delivered to my inbox? That sounds great. That was an interesting document. So I can go ahead and it prompts me for my email address. So I'll put that in here. And next, just like that, it says, hey, would you like to schedule some time to meet with one of our product specialists? And why not? So I'll click yes. And then it will load up a calendar for Lisa. So now it's showing me, I can click schedule meeting, and it's actually going to show me Lisa's calendar. And it says that she actually has availability in a little more than 15 minutes. So I can book this meeting right now and have something on the calendar to meet with Lisa just like that. So there we have confirmation that the meeting was scheduled. I will also receive an email in my inbox with the email address that I left, and then Lisa will receive an email as well, showing that she has a meeting scheduled and ready to go, and she'll get that notification. So that's a flyby of the visitor experience. That's what visitors, one example of the infinite number of conversations that you can present to your visitors on their website. So let's jump over into the dynamic chat marketer interface, and we'll look at how the sausage was made. So here we have a list of dialogues where I can see all of the different conversations that have been created in my instance that I can put on various different pages, or that I can target to different individuals in my database. So in this case, we're just going to walk through really high level. I'm going to show you what the key components of an individual dialogue are, and then we're actually going to go through the end-to-end workflow of how easy it is to actually publish one of these on your website. So first, there are 3 components to every dialogue. There's audience criteria. Audience criteria is where I define where and to whom my conversation is displayed. So first, here on the top, you see target. This is where I can enter the URL or URLs for any that I want this dialog to display on. So in this case, I see that it's being shown on one URL. I also have the capability here of excluding URLs. So for instance, if I wanted to target all of adobe.com with a wildcard, and then additionally, but I want to make sure that I'm not showing it on a particular page or a particular subset of pages. For instance, I don't want to show my marketing automation on the Photoshop section of the website. Then I can go ahead and exclude that. So now it's going to show up on all of the pages except for anyone who's looking at Photoshop. So that's how I can determine exactly where my dialog shows up. And then we actually just released this new functionality about a week ago. We added the ability to, excuse me, to target people based off of the activity on the web. So for instance, here, if I want to wait until someone has scrolled a certain percentage on my page, I can say, you know what, I want to make sure that they're really interested before I show them this dialog. So I'm gonna wait till they've scrolled at least a quarter of the way down the respective length of that page. And then we have attributes. So attributes allow us to target specific individuals. So I can leave this empty and it will show up for everyone on my website, or I can put specific attributes like inferred or lead attributes from Marketo. So if I use inferred, this will target anonymous folks who we have IP data from. So I can target geos. It allows me to target anonymous people who are coming from specific areas or from specific companies. And then down below here, we see attributes that are specific to the lead. So these are all coming directly. These get synced directly from Marketo Engage. So here, I'm able to define a set of attributes from my Marketo Engage instance, either native attributes or custom attributes that I want to use, and I can pull these in here and say that if I want to target known people, I can target them by their industry or by their company name, etc. So that's how I target to make sure I'm getting the right audience for my conversation. Next, we have the designer. So this is where I actually design the conversation. So everything that we saw was predetermined. So this allows me, so the way that dynamic chat is purposely designed is to provide the marketer with full control over the conversation. So you'll notice that when we went through the demo, there is no option for the visitor to stop and ask a question or anything like that. With that, if you look at this, it's a purely deterministic conversation that allows me to guide my visitor through a very specific journey in the conversation. So there are a few types of cards that you have access to. One is a message card. This is purely just the ability to present a piece of information to the visitor on the web. As you'll see here, we have the capability to add personalization. So you can use those fields from Marketo to personalize your conversation if you have information, if they already exist in your database, similar to how you would in an email today. Additionally, the next one we have is a question. So the question is the card type that allows you to branch your conversation in different directions. Provides multiple choice options such as yes, no, maybe later. And then you can also map these responses back to a field in your database. So for instance, if this were a different question, like, like what is your favorite color? And you had red, blue, and green, you could map that back to a favorite color field if that was something that you chose to save in your database. Additionally, so a better example here, let's jump to this question card. For instance, we've selected SMM, SEO, and email marketing. So I could map this response back to a specific topic. And then additionally, another new feature that we recently added was the ability to change the stored value that is shown. So again, this is something similar that we do in forms, that you can do in forms today. So to the visitor, I want to display SMM and SEO, but in my database, I might want to store social media management or search engine optimization and so on. So that way I can decide what I want to store versus what I want to show. The next card type is that we saw was the document card. So again, something we released just within the last few weeks based off of lots of customer requests, is a new feature that allows you to embed a PDF directly, which allows you to embed a PDF directly here. So you can simply give your document a name, and you can use any URL. There's an integration. We use an integration with the Adobe Document Cloud that allows you to do this. You just simply have to create some free credentials, set up the integration in the configuration or in the integration section of the dynamic chat designer, and then now you can reference and share any PDF URL on the web right there in your chat conversation. Next, we have the information capture. This one simply allows you to capture a piece of information. In the example that we used, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. In the example here, a simple example is capturing an email. So this is how you would actually convert someone to a lead in your database. So once they've captured this email, as you can see here, I can map this directly to the email address field in my Marketo database. You can also do phone and open text. So for instance, if you wanted to capture a first and last name or a company or something like that, and you can use the text field and then map that back to one of those values or one of those fields. The appointment scheduler allows you to simply drop where you want to show that calendar that we showed. And then depending on how many agents can have their calendars connected here in the instance, it'll show a different agent on a round robin routing schedule. And then lastly, we have the goal, which is the one type that the customer or the visitor does not see. So a goal allows you to define sort of an important point in your conversation that you want to make note of. And then we also have an activity in Marketo where you can see all of this data tracked. So with that, we jump quickly over. Actually, the last part is reporting. So this is where you can see some high level performance of your dialogue. Our team is currently working on some additional advanced reporting that will allow you to sort of look at performance over time. Right now, this just gives you a snapshot of engagement and activity on your dialogue. So let's jump quickly over into Marketo so you can kind of see what this looks like on the Marketo side. So here, really quickly, when you get access to dynamic chat in your instance, admins initially will see this new dynamic chat tile, and then there's a new permission that we've added that will reveal this tile to other users as they get access. So I want to quickly jump over into marketing activities, and we'll take a look at what these activities look like. So as visitors are interacting, we capture a handful of different activities from dynamic chat and that you can leverage as filters and triggers here in Smart Campaigns. So for instance, we talked about goals. So in the case of interested, I can say that at anytime somebody uses this, is on this particular dialogue and they hit this goal in the conversation, I want to trigger this campaign. Additionally, I could use filter or trigger as well to say anyone who's interacted with this particular document, and that means they've opened it and they've taken they've scrolled, they've downloaded, anything like that, then I also want to take an action. And then I can use that to activate some flow steps, like changing a lead score or adding them to an engagement program. And then what that looks like in the database is all this is stored on the person record. So if I were to grab, for instance, oops, I think I clicked the wrong one there. if I want to grab Shrikant's person record, and then I can go to his activity log, and I can actually see all the different activities. So I can see that he reached a goal at this period of time, and on which website that happened, or on which page, so on and so forth. So that's a high level flyover. So I want to switch gears a little bit here. Check my time. So I want to switch gears a little bit here, and I'm gonna show you how you can what the end-to-end workflow looks like, and from when you first get enabled with dynamic chat all the way through publishing. And if I do my job well, I think we can do this in about 5 minutes. So when we so as we mentioned, we're rolling. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, but we're rolling this out to all customers over throughout the rest of the year. And so some of you may have access, some of you may not. But when you do get access, an administrator will receive an email that looks like this. It says you now have administrator rights to manage Adobe software and services. This means that you now have access to an Adobe org where you can manage users. So one thing that you may have noted is that I switched to 2 different interfaces. So dynamic chat actually lives on experience.adobe.com, and Marketo lives here in marketo.com. So they do live in 2 different places. So user management is still shared between 2. As you may be aware, we are working toward merging those into a single sign-on over the next several months. But in the meantime, it will require managing users in 2 different places. So once this user gets, the administrator gets this, you'll click that. You'll be taken to a sign-in page. If you'll just enter your email address where you received that email. If you have an Adobe org account already, it'll take you right in. If not, you'll have to simply go through a quick profile creation, and then you'll be taken to the Adobe Admin Console. So in Experience Cloud, the Adobe Admin Console is where users are managed. And so the first thing that you'll have to do is once you get access to dynamic chat is add some users so that they can have access to it. You'll do that by clicking on products, going to this dynamic chat tile, opening up the product profile for your dynamic chat. And one thing to note, let me back up here. One thing to note is that this one's blank, but if you have a sandbox instance, you'll see 2 under your org. So you'll see 1 different instance for every Marketo subscription that you have. So if you have a production subscription and 2 sandbox subscriptions, you'll see 3 listed here. Each one of those will have different its own user management section. So in this case, we have 1. I'm going to come here to the profile for this one, and I can add users. Adding users is as simple as coming here, putting a name in, and adding a first and last name, and then I'll click save. Once I've clicked save there, any user who I've added will receive an email that looks something like this. It will say, hey, you now have access to dynamic chat. They'll go through a similar process. They'll click get started. If they already have an Adobe account, they'll hit this login screen and they'll go right in. If they don't have an Adobe account, they'll have to set up a profile. Now, once you've added that permission, they'll have access to this screen, and you can start creating your dialogues. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to show you how easy it is to get something published on your site. So here, we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to start with by installing the JavaScript. So the first thing you have to do, actually just before this, one of the things that you'll want to be aware of is in order to sync lead fields from your Marketo subscription into dynamic chat, you will want to come here to the integrations, select which fields that you want to sync, and then do that. And that's a one-time activity. Once you've done that, it'll start running. It can take a few hours, up to a day, depending on the size of your database, but that will ensure that you have access to all of the various different fields that you need. That is not a requirement to publish a dialogue, but it is something that if you want to leverage your fields, you can do that up front. The next step here is I simply want to grab a JavaScript snippet. So any page that I want to show this chatbot on needs to have this JavaScript snippet embedded on it. We're going to use an example of a Marketo landing page, but you can put this snippet on any web page or on any website that you want to show the chatbot on. It simply needs to be added to the common HTML template of your domain so that it'll make sure to be available on all pages. So here I've copied this snippet. I'm going to jump over to a landing page that I've created. I'm going to go ahead and edit the draft here. And for a landing page, it's as simple as adding it to the meta tags under the custom head HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this script, click save, approve and close. And now that's been installed on my page. It's ready and listening for a new chatbot. Next, I'm going to come here to the dialog. I'm going to click create. I'm going to grab a template. So we've got about 4 pre-built templates for you to use: lead generation, qualification, registration. I'm just going to grab the blog reader conversion template. We'll call this Mug Deep Dive Demo. Click create. Now the first thing I'll need to do here is grab the URL for that page, copy it, put it here in my target URL, and that's ready to go. Now, you'll notice here that this template comes with email addresses empty. This ensures that you're targeting only anonymous people. So anyone who's already in your database, this will not target. If I want to target everyone, I can remove this altogether. So for instance, if I want to go ahead and target every person who lands on this page, I can remove that, and this will make sure that it's shown to everyone. Jump over here to the Stream Designer. All my content is here. I can quickly grab the preview to make sure and run through it just to make sure it says what I want, and I can make tweaks accordingly. So I can kind of look through this flow and see if it does what I want it to. In this case, it's asking me for my email address, my first name, and my last name. And then it's telling me to watch for some more great content. So this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and run with this. So I'm going to click publish here. Like that. Now let's go here and take a look at this page. There it is, just like that. So now I have my chatbot showing right on my screen. So I think we did that in less than 5 minutes. So as you can see, from the moment that you receive that email saying that you have access to dynamic chat to getting something published on your website can be done in just a matter of minutes. Let me see where I'm at here. Check my time. I think we're doing okay. So I'm going to jump back to my slides. Give me just one moment to make that transition. Oops. Apologies. All right. Here we go. So I already touched on a few of the new features. I just want to kind of highlight, we released this earlier this year, and we've been continuing to add new features throughout, and we will continue to do so. We release every few weeks, so we release new functionality and bug fixes. And so I talked about chatbot events and the PDF embed and exclude URLs. Actually, I think we talked about all of these. One thing we didn't touch on was extended language support. So when we first released dynamic chat, the UI was only available in English, and we have since extended this to all of the primary 9 languages that Adobe Experience Cloud supports. So you'll be able to access the UI in any of these languages. Additionally, we didn't demonstrate it, but the chatbot, because it's completely controlled, because the entire each one of the messages that you present to the visitors on your site is controlled by you can enter those in any language that you like. So Even if your UI is in Dutch, or I'm sorry, in French, then you can actually serve up chatbots to people in Dutch or languages that aren't supported here, because you'll be able to enter that using your keyboard. So I'm gonna hand it over so you can take a break from me. I'm gonna hand it over to Srikanth for a few minutes, and he's gonna talk through some use cases and some best practices.
Yeah, thank you, John. So probably you have to take all the questions and answering them. But there's been a lot of questions, and thank you so much for everybody asking those questions. To highlight some use cases, so this is a learning that we have taken from customers who are already using dynamic chat. Most common use case that we have seen customers use is for site navigation. Whenever a visitor visits your web page, it can be a home page or a landing page. For the first time, you would want to assist your visitor and understand the visitor's intent and interest with using the dialogues of dynamic chat. And second is driving engagement to event registration pages. As a marketer, I think we create landing pages and we drive traffic to those landing pages through various channels, which can also be done through chatbot, right? If anyone who's visiting homepage, now you can engage with them and try to see if he's interested, and you can divert that, navigate that visitor to the event registration page and get more registrations. Another most common use case is this is all of these are more simpler use cases, I would say. The third one is how can we get more opt-ins for your newsletters for visitors who are going through your blogs and resource pages. You can deploy chatbot there and see if they are interested to receive more, and ask for newsletter opt-ins. Then I think the profile enrichment and lead generation, both are very common use cases. Of course, with all the dialogues, what we're trying to do is understand the intent and interest and of the visitor, and parallelly capture the lead information, both primary contact and also their firmographic and demographic information. Multilingual chat, it's pretty interesting that customers who have a global presence, if they have their websites built in different languages and they want these conversations to be same conversation, right? You might have the same goal for the dialogue. You can recreate the dialogues in different languages and target them for different visitors who are coming from different geographies. Right. Last is enriching the profile information in Marketo. So if it is a visitor who's already known to Marketo, I think John had already shown you how you can target them using the audience criteria segment, where you can use Marketo attributes to define the target audience, so that you can target dialogues for those known leads and get more information and enrich that. I'm sure there are millions other use cases that are possible. This is something that we have observed, these use cases from the customers who are already using it. And since most of them are using the chatbots for the first time, they started with the simpler use cases, and then they are navigating themselves to cater to more complex use cases. John, can you go to the next slide? Awesome. So here are some tips that we have. Again, this is based on our observations from our customers. So one aspect is to do the setup right, get the dialogues created, and get them deployed into a website. The second aspect is how do you create or design these conversations to get maximum ROI, right? How do I ensure that more visitors engage with this chatbot or with these dialogues, and how do I ensure that they go through the conversation and don't drop off at some point, right? So some tips that we have received from customers and based on our observations is there's a simple 4 steps process or a framework that you can follow, which can improve your chances of engagement with your chatbot from your visitors. First is you have to sit back after you, of course, once you understand all the setup and how do you create conversations and everything, take a pause and understand what are the use cases that you want to drive through chat for your business, right? It might be more complex or it can be more simpler use cases. It's up to you. How do you prioritize them? But it's important that you identify those use cases, right? Only then you create those relevant dialogues that are catering to these use cases. So one use case can be achieved with one dialogue or multiple dialogues, right? For example, a use case is I want to drive more event registrations, right? It can be done through conversations that you deploy on your homepage. It can be done through conversations that are deployed on your landing page where you're driving traffic from social media to that event registration page, right? Or any other landing page that talks about this event, right? So once you have the use cases node jot down, identify what are the goals for your business, and also what are the goals for the visitor who's coming there and who would interact with this conversation, right? Against this use case or against this each dialogue. So once you're clear that, hey, I'm driving this, for example, I'm creating this dialogue to get more event registrations, right? So I have to ensure that this visitor knows enough information about this event and ensure that he's interested, identify if he's interested for this event, and then navigate him to the registration page or get the information so that you can automatically register him for the event, right? That's your goal. But what is the visitor's goal, right? Here in this case, the visitor might be looking for like, hey, this event is looking great, probably I should register for it. And where should I do that? Right? Or I've seen some event that's happening. Where can I find more information about it? So these would be the goals of the visitor. So once you design a conversation, you ensure that the information flow in that dialogue is aligned to the visitor's goal, and you parallelly drop in between the questions that you want to ask that would help you achieve your goal. I hope that makes sense. Um, Third important step is how this is similar to how you create more engaging email subject lines, right? And more improved subject line, more personalized subject line gets more engagement, right? Similarly, when you create a dialogue and when you have that pop-up message every time when a website visitor visits a web page and sees a chatbot and has a pop-up message, if you write that pop-up message aligned to what visitor is looking for example, in our example that we have taken, which is visitor wants to know more about the event that's going to happen, and the pop-up message says, hey, are you looking to know more about this XYZ event, right? Then there's a higher chance that visitor would interact or engage with this dialogue, right? The fourth is when you end a conversation, you just simply you don't just simply say that thank you, it's nice talking to you, but you should probably end the conversation by highlighting some next steps, action step. It can be from your side, it can be from their side. For example, a conversation is ending, and you can promising the visitor saying that, hey, thank you for opting for the newsletter. You should receive an email from us, where we share great content on a weekly basis. Right? That's an action item that you have taken and you've given the promise to the visitor, where visitor is expecting something more from you. The other case where you want to give an action item to the visitor saying that, hey, here is a link or a case study that you can go through, and if you want more information, click here. Right, so then visitor can click on it. If they lands on a new page, now you can target them with a new dialogue and continue the engagement and get more lead information. I'll stop there. I hope this is useful. You can always come back and refer this framework, and you can reach out to us too. Now I'll hand it over back to John, he will talk about what are the rollout plans that we have.
Awesome. Thanks, Srikanth. And I think I tried to capture most of the questions. I think there was a couple up top that we may jump back to. Also, I want to make sure and I'll try and run through the rest of this pretty quickly so that we can leave time for people to ask and we can discuss some of these questions. So I'm going to move through the rest pretty rapidly. So Rollout, I saw this question in the chat. This is the best part about dynamic chat is it's free. So we are including it as a new channel in all Marketo Engage bundles at no additional cost. So this will be available to all customers. Our goal is to make this available to everyone by the end of the year. So we started rolling out and in February, and we've so far enabled 800 plus customers so far, and we're working hard to continue through the remainder of the customers through the rest of this year. We do have a couple mechanisms for prioritizing interested customers and partners who want access to it early. So with that, what we'll say is please reach out to your CSM to ask if you can get access, and then they have access to a form that they can fill out to submit for early access. So we're rolling this out. We're doing this in batches, and so we do roughly one batch every 6 weeks. And so if you're not, you can check with your CSM to find out if you're already part of the current batch, and if you're not, they can put in a request to have you prioritized for the next one. Trying to think if I missed anything there. And then resources. So we've got lots of resources out there. We've been working to make sure that there's plenty of information. Pretty much everything we've covered today is available in product documentation and tutorial videos. So on Experience League, we have under the Marketo docs, you can find all the documentation around all the features that we talked about today. Please check that out. Additionally, there's a link there in the overview to a tutorial section. So also on Experience League, we've recorded about 7 or 8 tutorial videos, and we'll continue to add those for new features as they come out, where you can kind of see exactly how things are done. And then we've also got a specific dynamic chat section on the Marketing Nation, where we've been posting some content, some articles, some of the best practices and use cases that Srikanth just went over. We've shared there. And then want to highlight our this was the Partner Lighthouse program. We have 2, a Partner and a Customer Lighthouse program. I grabbed the wrong slide, but want to highlight our Customer Lighthouse program, which is a program that allows you to get knowledge and expertise to implement dynamic chat. Primary benefit is it allows you to get one-on-one time with the product team, so that we can meet with you, walk through how to help you get set up, and go through some, help you get through any hurdles that you've got. So that is a limited time. We're running that program through the end of June. We may extend that a little bit, but right now, please again contact your CSM if you're interested. There's also a form in the Marketing Nation. Srikanth can probably link that. There is a article that we posted on Marketing Nation that highlights that Lighthouse program, and there's actually a form that you can fill out to request to be a part of that, and then we'll reach out to you to get you added. And so again, that allows you to helps us know that you want priority access. We can get you added to an upcoming batch for provisioning. Allows you to get access to one-on-one help from the product team, and then it also allows you to engage with other invested customers who are building, doing some exciting things with the dynamic chat. I believe that wraps up our content. So we've got 15 minutes to answer any other additional Q&A and talk through some of these questions. So yeah, we answered, I think we tried to answer as many as we could in the chat, but if there's anything that someone didn't get answered or didn't get answered to their satisfaction, please chime in. You can, I believe you have access to unmute yourself and let us know. All right, well, maybe I'll run through. I'm going to scroll back up a little bit. Feel free to interrupt me, but I'm going to scroll back up just in case folks missed some things. I'm going to look through some of these questions. There's a lot of questions in here, so I'm not even sure where to start. Was there anything, actually, Srikanth, you were answering the majority of these. Was there anything that stuck out, sort of a frequently asked one, or anything that you wanted to highlight that we should cover?
Yeah, I would like to hear everybody's feedback. Do you like it? What do you think about this? Are you excited to use this?
Give us a thumbs up if it's something that you think that you'd like to integrate into your business.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. One thing we didn't cover, see, where does the file live? So I see a question here about the PDF integration. Where does the file live? So PDF integration, you can use a file that's hosted anywhere. So it's an API that we're using from the Adobe Document Cloud. So that file can be hosted on your domain. We don't have a storage for it, so there's not a place for you to upload the file. It does need to be hosted somewhere already. You're just referencing a URL in dynamic chat. All you have to do there. One thing to note is when you're creating a new client ID, which I didn't touch on this, but you'll need to make sure that when you do that you're using your domain. That probably doesn't make sense to anyone, so I apologize. I probably just added more confusion. In short, the file can be hosted anywhere. We just don't have a storage for it. Let's see. I see a question about, can the chat appear at the time of day, like night only? We don't have that functionality. Interesting use case. The way that it's purely based off of, anyone who lands on your website, if they meet the criteria. We don't have a criteria that says, what time of day it is, but definitely we'll take that into account. It's an interesting use case. So question here about viewing the PDF as a preview. You can absolutely download it. I see here, and I might need clarification, it says without providing any data. So I'm not sure what the second part means, but I will say that, so this was from Erica. The PDF embed allows them to pull up the PDF, view it in their browser. We track all the activities, including download. And so all of that will get pushed back into Marketo so that you can action upon it as desired. But they can view it or download it. They can search against it. And I think, I see, without providing any data. So yes, they would have access. So if you're thinking about this like gated content sort of concept, the way that this works is you can, in the dynamic chat, choose to gate the PDF if you want to wait to show them that PDF document link in the chatbot until after you've captured whatever information, like their lead information. You can do that. Wherever you put that, though, wherever you've put that document card, as soon as it's there, they'll have access to read it, preview it, download it, do whatever they want with it. Let's see. I see a question about custom fields. Attributes can absolutely be custom fields. You can use, we will surface all of the attributes in your Marketo instance, whichever Marketo instance it's linked to, and you can sync up to 50 today, up to 50 fields, either native or custom. But I think most of what we showed was just native attributes. Let's see. I see one about targeting past customers, new leads if you have user data already. So absolutely, you can target known leads. See, chime in if this doesn't answer your question, but you can target known leads in your database using those fields. So anyone who has, who we've captured an email address for, or we've captured name information for, you can target them, or you can target anonymous leads. Let's see. So I see a question here. This is an interesting one. Attributes only available if visitors are cookied prior on the site. So yes, and so there's two answers to that question. So if they're cookied, if they already have visited your site and they're already in your database, then you'll have those attributes will work for them. But let's say, for instance, you ask for some questions up front. We have a database in dynamic chat. So an example, I start the chat and I say, "Hi, what's your name?" And I'm targeting an anonymous lead. So an anonymous person lands on my site. My first question is, "Hi, what's your name?" They type John. That's obviously not enough for them to be created as a lead in my database, but we will store that information. I will say John. We can ask for some additional information. What company do you work for? Adobe. We'll store that. Then if they leave and come back, we will store that information in the dynamic chat database, but it won't go into Marketo because it doesn't have the requisite information to create a lead. But if they come back the next day, they enter another chat, be cookied, and we will continue to store that information against them in the dynamic chat database. And then if they leave their email address, let's say the next thing they visit is, and they leave their email address. Now we have their name, their company, and their email address. We'll write all of that into Marketo, and so now we'll have all the information. Today we touched on, I believe, let's see. And we've got about 5 minutes left. Anything else? I'm just going through questions. Anyone else? I'll take a pause if anything else came up while we were talking.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that question about the cookie in known person.
If you have
It sounded like that you can capture first name, last name on the previous events, and then later on capture email address, and only until you capture all the information, then the lead will be passed into Marketo. Is that what it sounds like?
Correct. We have to have at least email address or phone number to create a lead record in Marketo. That's the minimum requirement for a new lead record in Marketo. So you can capture additional other information up to that point, but we can't pass it into Marketo until we at least have email or phone.
Is there a way we can control that we have to have first and last name on top of email and phone number?
Let's see. So you can control the order of operations in the chat however you want. So if you wanted to ask for their email address first, I think in one of the examples we showed, if you want to start by asking for the email address so that the lead record gets created, and then ask for the subsequent information after that, that will ensure that all of that is going to get captured up front. That's the best way to do that.
I see. Just changes up the order of your question.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you want to ensure that the lead record gets updated with all that information, we would recommend putting the email or phone number request as your first info capture option, and then that way anything subsequently that they enter will automatically get written to that lead record in Marketo.
Gotcha. And what if we don't want to capture a phone number, but we wanted to create a record in Marketo?
That's yeah, go ahead, Shrikant.
Yeah, currently, see, the chat is a high touch point activity, right? So there might be a lot of hundreds and thousands of visitors visiting the web pages. And this is a feedback that we got from customers that if we start creating records for every engagement into Marketo, then Marketo database you blow up the limit pretty soon, right? So what we have constrained as of now is we only create lead if it is lead. We only push information of a engagement if a lead is known. And when we say known, the definition of known is if we have at least email ID or phone number.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it wasn't an option that we can just opt out phone number, but in the newsletter sign up or blog post sign up, where we only need email address, and wouldn't that be
sorry,
unnecessary to ask phone number?
Yeah, sorry, I think the clarification was either or, so not both and.
I
so
see.
You either have to capture the phone number or the email address in order to create that record. Sorry for that confusion.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Yeah. I know we've got 2 minutes left. Thank you, Emma. I appreciate that that question. That was a good one. We got 2 minutes left, so I just want to kind of just take 1 or 2 more questions if there's any left, and then we'll start to wrap up so we can let everyone get back to their busy days.
Can you just quickly address how consent is managed for the data capture portion?
Yeah, so consent at this stage is fully, so there's 2 different ways. We've got some customers who are putting the chatbot script essentially behind their cookie acceptance policy. So we've got one customer specifically that will not allow the chatbot to be triggered until the cookie acceptance policy has been accepted, which is probably a best practice if you have that on your site. Additionally, if you're looking for explicit consent, we have another customer that has has a consent question at the very beginning of their chatbot conversations that says, would you like to, we're interacting with this dialogue, we'll capture it, we'll store your data. And so there's a consent that way.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that one. That's a key one. We get that a lot. Okay, well, I think we're pretty much at time. So thank you so much, everyone, for having us today. We're excited to be able to. We hope to hear from hopefully all of you. Please reach out to your CSMs if you're interested in getting access. Please take a look at the link that Srikanth posted earlier for the Customer Lighthouse program. We'd love to interact with you, and we'd love to see all of you adopting and using dynamic chat, hopefully in the very near future.